We're back with Ann Coulter. And recently, I was at Brown University, and you know that's a very liberal campus up there in Providence, Rhode Island, although I will say one of the most wonderful group of students. They were very respectful, and probably there weren't three of them in the entire place that agreed with me. But it's a place famous for throwing pies at their guests, and you've had a little experience with that. We got the tape.
No, I mean, this is, you raise an important point that I make in my book, which is you take away the terrorism, and liberals would hate Muslims.
Now, Ann, I wanted you to know I didn't throw that pie. I wanted you to make sure that you knew that was not me back there.
In my next book, I do move like Keanu Reeves.
I thought that for a minute that was at Brown University because they have such a history of doing that. That was
No, I'll tell you something interesting about this. This is actually in my last book. I describe, because I gave a lot of college speeches, curiously, at the best schools and the southern schools. Those are the two. Never get stuff like that.
Of course not.
Because, you know, they're too bright. At Harvard, they would never do that. And in the South, they're chivalrous and bright. It tends to be the Bush League schools, which obviously have very smart students. They're all college Republicans. But you know, at the schools where they have professors like Ward Churchill, they're ginning up semi-retarded people into these feral rages. That, I don't know if you could tell from that segment, that's during question and answer.
Yeah.
So, okay, I can't formulate a question, but I can throw food. That doesn't happen at Brown, Smith, and I'm pleased to say my alma mater, Cornell. No, they ask questions. They want to outsmart you.
Cornell was one of the schools that I also spoke at, and again, very civil students.
Right.
I want to specifically talk. Your book has extraordinary research behind it. I commend you for that.
Thank you.
You have a lot of interesting facts, and one of them was how people who have been Republicans and have worked for Republicans get loved by the media as soon as they go out and want to trash former bosses. You specifically mentioned Scott McClellan in Chapter 4. I always have had a problem with people who take a paycheck from someone, serve and get inside information, and then go use it against that person.
Right. And it seems to happen with, well, it does happen, as I document, with alarming frequency with Republican presidents, not so much with Democrat presidents. I mean, not Jimmy Carter, because he executed his presidential duties so magnificently, no doubt. But with, I think Bush may have had more than any others. One interesting thing, this is why I do my own research. You discover things a researcher wouldn't find. I started with Richard Nixon, and you know, the first boss to show, whose underlings showed what disloyalty to your superior looks like. John Dean wrote his book, Blind Ambition, made into NBC miniseries, big bestseller, blah, blah, blah. I went back and I was looking up articles about it. It would have come out in the last year of Nixon's presidency. And in the articles about it, it describes one intriguing item that John Dean has, much like McClellan's claim that he overheard Bush saying, yeah, he might have done cocaine. It fits into liberal talking points. The John Dean talking point was that he overheard Nixon saying, the typewriters are always the key. We built one in the Hiss case. And the Hiss case is, of course, the Alger Hiss case, which is the reason liberals hated Richard Nixon for getting Soviet spy Alger Hiss. I mean, Nixon was actually kind of a liberal president, but they were still furious with him with Whittaker Chambers exposing Alger Hiss as a Soviet spy. The key evidence in that case was a typewriter. And the documents that Chambers said that Hiss passed to him, the Pumpkin Papers, were proved to have been typed on the Hiss family typewriter. Hiss said before the jury, to explain this away, he said, I shall always wonder how Whittaker Chambers got into my house to use my typewriter. The jury laughed at him, convicted him of perjury for denying he was a Soviet spy. And then John Dean seems to confirm the idea, this conspiracy theory around the typewriter. That's why you can't lie, because you never know what's going to happen later, that the Soviet Union would fall, the Venona Papers would come out, and Alger Hiss would be proved to be a Soviet spy, and John Dean proved to be a liar.
We've got 30 seconds left, if that. Now, I need to ask you, because the single mother chapter in Chapter 2, fascinating stuff, powerful stuff. You essentially are pointing out what Daniel Patrick Moynihan said as a liberal Democratic senator, that single parenthood is a serious economic issue.
And
yet
evidence has been pouring in since then. So much more evidence, a lot of it in the relevant evidence in that chapter. And I quote Brent Bozell saying even Republican politicians stay away from it because of what happened to Dan Quayle and Murphy Brown.
It's a great book. I hope people will get it. It's called Guilty. Ann Coulter is the author.